Hello everyone, I'm Dr. K. Today I'm going to talk about the story of money laundering. If this were a legally earned income, although not much, this money would have a complete and clean transaction process. As the holder of this money, you could use it however you like, but this is an illicit fund of unknown origin. Although the amount is huge, the transaction process of this money is full of suspicious points. As the holder of this money, Mr. Fay can only look at it but not use it, because once he touches this money, the regulatory authorities will immediately detect it and eventually bring him to justice. Now, imagine Li Jiang acting as a prosecutor in a fictional world, observing from a third-person perspective, proving how Mr. Fay successfully launders this money through a series of methods and eventually transfers it overseas. Because the amount of illicit money is too large, Mr. Fay knows that once his spending records do not match his income level, it will easily attract the attention of regulators. Even if he wants to emigrate, he needs to explain the source of his wealth to the government of the next country. Otherwise, in the eyes of any authority, he is nothing more than a walking wallet. So the urgent task is to find a way to launder this money. Thus, through another person's introduction, Mr. Zheng finds an underground black market expert named Xiaoming, nicknamed the money laundering machine. As someone deeply involved in the underworld for many years, Xiaoming could immediately tell this was a big deal upon meeting Mr. Zheng. If successful, it might even allow him to retire on the spot. But as a professional in the underground business, Xiaoming has his own principles. After thinking it through, he decided to leave the choice to Mr. Fay and began explaining the services he could provide. In general, Xiaoming's business is divided into three main categories. The first is called the traditional laundering method. Simply put, this means operating a legitimate company, business, or investment, and then blending the dirty money into the normal transaction flows. After paying taxes, the money naturally becomes legal. For example, opening a jade shop, stones originally worth a few thousand or tens of thousands are sold for hundreds of thousands or millions under the name of gambling stones. Or opening a tea shop. Cheap tea is repackaged as high-end tea costing thousands per pound. Because the valuation of items like jade, tea, antiques and calligraphy varies greatly. As long as the shop operates normally, occasionally mixing in problematic transactions won't easily attract regulatory scrutiny. Given enough time, black money can be successfully laundered through shop revenue. A classic case here is Al Capone, the godfather of money laundering in America. A century ago, he laundered hundreds of millions of dollars through a large number of laundromats. Since laundromats had so many daily transactions, adding 20%, 50% more revenue on top of normal business didn't seem unusual, and regulators had no ability to thoroughly check every detail. However, Mr. Fay was clearly dissatisfied with this method. He thought it might be stable, but the efficiency was far too low. Suppose a shop normally has 50,000 yuan in daily revenue, which increases to 60,000 or even 100,000 with dirty money involved. That's only 300,000 to 1.5 million per month. At this pace, it would take 10 or 20 years to clean the money. And if too many shops are involved, the risks grow. If even one shop has a problem, it could ruin everything. Obviously, Mr. Fay wasn't satisfied with this approach. So Xiaoming moved on to the next business, the movie laundering method. The film industry is one of the most well-known sectors for money laundering. For example, The Wolf of Wall Street was funded by Malaysia's Sovereign Wealth Fund, which later came under investigation by the US Department of Justice for suspected laundering. You could say it was a two-way story between movies and real life. Why is the film industry so closely tied to dirty money? The answer is simple. A movie isn't just acting. At its core, a film is a massive project involving hundreds or even thousands of people. Producing one requires not only large amounts of money but also highly complex financial flows. This makes it very easy to slip illicit funds into the process. For instance, in terms of actor fees, The pay scale of celebrities can be extremely exaggerated. A few years ago, they might earn only tens of thousands. But once they become popular, their pay skyrockets into tens of millions, the so-called sky-high salaries. Some investors privately sign yin-yang contracts with actors. On the surface, the fee is 10 million, but in reality, they may only pay 5 million or even 3 million. Some may wonder, doesn't that create tax problems? If the fee is declared as 10 million, won't the taxes wipe out the actor's earnings? This is where accounting tricks come in. Taxes are levied on profit, so if the actor can show that their true profit wasn't 10 million, the tax burden can be reduced dramatically. Of course, this is not easy to do, which is why many actors end up being investigated for tax evasion. Another trick is inflating production costs. For example, building an entire filming base, adding expensive explosion or collapse scenes, or purchasing one-time use props. The actual costs might be 1 or 2 million, but they're reported as over 10 million. Since these props and sets are destroyed after filming, it's hard to verify the true expenses. If that's not enough, there's the third move, inflating box office numbers. For example, ghost screenings, where theaters are empty, but ticketing systems show sold-out shows. Or selling overpriced tickets, where a 30 or 50 yuan ticket is priced at hundreds. Behind the scenes, the theater and the film's real backers split the profits. The theater keeps 10%, 20%, and the rest goes into the production company's official revenue, turning dirty money into clean income. Compared to offline businesses, laundering through film is more efficient. But Mr. Fay rejected this proposal as well, citing uncontrollable risks. Movies are already heavily monitored, involving crews, celebrities, and logistics teams. If even one link fails, say disputes over profit sharing or missed payments, partners might turn into whistleblowers, collapsing the entire process. Even if it works, it only reduces the timeline from decades to a few years. Mr. Fay didn't have that much time to wait. Chucked. Ming quickly caught on to Mr. Fay's concerns and revealed his second category of services, the so-called virtual bleaching method. If offline businesses and investments don't work, why not try the internet, where regulation is more difficult? In the past, the internet had special slow top-up services. Operators claimed to have internal channels for certain platforms, offering virtual goods or services at 20% off. Customers would provide their account or phone number and wait. In reality, no goods were purchased. The money simply became part of an online shop's revenue. Middlemen would then hire people from online part-time job platforms, often students or inexperienced youth, to carry out the top-ups. When someone ordered a discounted recharge, these runners would top up the account, earning a 0.3%, 0.5% commission. To the customer, it looked like they got a discount. To the shop, it looked like legitimate revenue. The process seemed flawless. But Mr. Fay noticed a major flaw. The loss rate was too high. On top of the 20% discount and 0.3% commission, the middleman would also take 5%, 10%. Platforms charged additional service fees. Sometimes shops would even vanish with the funds. Total losses could exceed 30%. And with internet monitoring becoming more advanced, no one could guarantee that undercover regulators weren't among the users. Mr. Fay realized he needed a real trump card. So Xiaoming presented the modern solution: cryptocurrency, specifically USDT, also known as a stablecoin. In the crypto world, people call it U. USDT claims to be pegged to the US dollar, theoretically backed 1-to-1. Its value fluctuations are minimal, making it ideal for criminals. Transaction losses rarely exceed plus 5%, which is very manageable. Here's how it works. First, exchange cash for USDT through offline traders. The USDT is transferred to a designated wallet. Then, use a mixer to break up and recombine the funds, making them harder to trace. After that, open multiple international bank accounts, Gradually convert USDT into dollars or euros and withdraw or transfer in batches when the time is right. The process is efficient, with plenty of buyers, especially if, like Mr. Fay, you're willing to pay an extra 5% fee. You could move more than half of the illicit funds overseas within 6 months. Mr. Fay was impressed, but still worried. If large sums of crypto were reported, even after emigrating, he might face strict scrutiny in another country and still fail to prove the legitimacy of his wealth. Xiaoming knew there was only one final option left: the Golden Dragon method, or financial alchemy. This involves using brokers or fund managers to manipulate stocks through retail accounts. Then, setting up companies overseas to disguise the money as corporate investment income, achieving legalization. These companies are usually registered in low-tax jurisdictions like Panama, the UAE, the Cayman Islands, or Singapore. Once set up, Mr. Fay could use the funds for spending, shopping, or even buying more crypto, all under the name of legitimate company activity. International tracking would be extremely difficult. But from your third-person perspective, you can see the fatal flaw. In this parallel world, regulators have just rolled out an AI-based upgrade. This system focuses on detecting manipulation patterns in stock trading. Once AI flags abnormal trades, those stocks face heightened scrutiny. While there may not be direct proof, increased regulatory pressure makes this strategy much harder to pull off. At its core, money laundering versus anti-money laundering is a cat-and-mouse game. One side tries to insert illicit funds into legitimate transactions. The other tightens monitoring to block it. Too much control stifles normal business. Too little allows rampant crime. This game isn't unique to our era. It's been ongoing since the last century. Neither side can completely defeat the other. At least within today's global framework, the showdown is far from over. The struggle is both thrilling and dangerous. And why call it financial alchemy? Because behind the massive risks lie enormous potential gains. Of course, there are countless other laundering tricks besides the ones I've mentioned. Traditional methods, online schemes, and more are just the tip of the iceberg. Criminals thrive on exploiting system loopholes. Each new regulation blocks old tactics, but also inspires new ones. Before I end, I must stress once again, money laundering is a serious crime. For ordinary people, understanding it is only to avoid getting trapped by small online temptations. Under the wheels of history, ordinary people are just dust. Don't take risks. Alright, that's all for today's video. If you like it, please like, comment and follow my channel.